assume, I was told by the director that most of you are have economic background. So it is not the first time that you see comparative economic systems topic. It's not the first time that you hear about capitalism. It's not the first time that you hear about socialism. And right position for Islamic economic system. So that's where we are at. The whole idea is to look at the philosophy, goals and features of the systems with the approach of comparing the different systems. And mainly we are comparing between the standard ones, and that are socialism, capitalism, and most importantly we will try to situate Islamic economic system in that spectrum of economic systems. The other difficulty that I foresee is the fact that I'll be sitting throughout the session. That is something I'm not used to, but okay. Okay. Then allow me to stand up so that you can see how tall I am. Yes. Ashraf was not the one who laughed, so that means a new person laughed as well. Somebody whom I am yet to know. Okay? Because some of you were my students, so some by some. Anyway, the responsibility here is to look at the question of systems. By that, we're covering the general background of the different systems that I mentioned. And I was told as well that there will be another session on the same topic. I mean, the extension of the topic in economic systems 2 and 3. That's where you can get the more detailed discussion about Islamic economic system. In my case, I'm just giving out the layout, the general background, so that you can have a better footing before you proceed to the deeper or extended discussion on the same topic later. And I assume it will be tomorrow, sometime tomorrow, with Dr. Mustafa and also Dr. Mohd. Does any one of you come here? Come to Malaysia for the first time? Okay, first time. So Malaysia, capitalistic economy or socialistic economy?
Mixed.
Mixed economy, of course. Real economies are all mixed. There's no pure form of capitalism anywhere in the world. And the same case can be said to socialism as well. So, yeah. But I'm sure you can see that we are nowhere near North Korea, or Cuba for that matter. For some general background, you know that we are more capitalistic compared to these economies. So what makes them differ is the real question here. Having said that, this topic is quite a sensitive one because it meddles with some political issues, question of democratic country or non-democratic ones. And in fact, you can observe in Islamic economic literature, people like Assoc, you might have come across his name. Rather than talking about system per se, he would prefer to use the IDE term, or Islamic political economy. And on that note, he made it very clear that whenever we want to talk about systems, then the discussion is very much tied to the political concerns as well. So, and as you know, in many Muslim countries, Indonesia just had their election last year. Politics is very hot. Yeah. You could have got a new president. So it's hot. And I'm sure sufficient resources. So, and that's the issue here. And with politics, there is that space for economics to thrive. And similarly, you have economic prowess, then you also have some extra edge over the rest. Because somehow or other, those billionaires can make remarks here and there and just say, I'm sorry, then khalas. Right? So, that's my strategy. My strategy is to go about these 2 points. What is the general understanding about system? What is then the comparative meaning of things? By the way, when I mentioned Muhammad just now, maybe I just allude to another topic. And this is somewhat recent. As I was trying to look for the literature on moral economy, then I just realized that Muhammad himself has somewhat morphed or abandoned the term IPE to Islamic moral economy. So, by that, I'm trying to say that perhaps the discussion is still on system. It is just that now there is this space within the economics discourse, general economic discourse, to be talking about moral economy rather than political economy. There is more bite, more interest in the topic of moral economy, given the scandals, given the crisis that we have faced. So, in other words, if you come across literature on moral economy, if you come across literature on political economy, chances are they are actually related to question of systems. Okay, that's my point here. Okay, and so the strategy is to be talking about 2 points. First, the background definition of what is the economic system, and then you go by the comparative economic system by undertaking 2 points of discussion, and that is the traditional approach and the characteristics. Okay. So my attempt here, as I said, many of you are all brilliant students of economics. I'm just trying to structure your understanding within the bigger topic of comparative economic system. That is the underlying motif here. Okay, hopefully I can achieve that objective. Okay, so what is a system? As simple as the word is, you might have all kinds of understanding. So it's best that we go by the standard definition, and that is to see things which are somewhat different, but they have a certain magnet that pulls them together and makes them belong to a certain family. Right? Just like our education system, just like our digestion system, can go to that kind of analysis as well. But of course, in the case of digestion system, it's more biology than economics. But if you talk about banking system, then you know that we have to be talking about what are the talking points. Whenever someone talk about or try to discuss banking system, anything? Any response? What are the talking points? What come across in your mind when you say banking system or education system? Banking system? Transactions, okay. Many transactions, complicated ones. Investments.
Regulation. Interest.
Okay. What about the players? The players. Industry players. Industry players. You don't think about banks, commercial banks, non-commercial banks. Yeah? Yes, you have the regulator, Bank of Indonesia, Bank of
OJK.
and Bank Negara Malaysia. Okay, so they seem to be having something in common, and that becomes the glue of that particular system. So the same goes with economics. Later, to try to expose what makes them belong to the family of economic system. Okay, by exposing to you the characteristics. Okay? So, all in all, these serve a certain purpose, a common one. So, you have the components. If I can cite Douglas C. North, who is a Nobel laureate. So, it basically is institutionalist. He mentioned or he identifies the difference, simple difference between institutions and also and organizations. Does anyone know the basic difference between these two? Institutions and organizations? More or less, I have mentioned the word just now. You have to find out lah. Institution apa? Yeah, when we talk about institutions, are we looking at the institute of that, this and that as institutions?
Set of rules.
Set of rules, excellent. Set of rules. But it doesn't stop there. It goes to something formal and also informal. Okay? So just now when we talk about transactions, we have to see how do you govern the transaction. Because as I said, there exist complicated transactions. Yeah? And thus we need law. Okay? We need enactment of law if there is a vacuum in the existing law of the land. So here you have the institutions being formal and informal ones. By informal is just the cultural norm, something that we as a society tend to agree on. Proof, if it's subject of a particular society, that can be an institution. But of course, in that case, it's the informal one. Whereby, if you want to talk about organizations, then these are the players, the players. So even though something is called institute, bank or analysis of institute apa? Giving one name of institute. That particular institute is not an institute per se. It's actually an organization. It's an organization rather than an institution. So people like North will be particular with the terms used. But more or less we know what we mean by institute, Islamic banking lah. But technically it's not institute per understanding of the lists. Okay? So that's the first one, the entities, the components here. I'm looking at the components, the groups, the players just now, the players, the banks, commercial and non-commercial banks, cooperative banks. All these entities are very much considered as the what's the term just now? When we talk about these entities, banks, organization. Technical word is organization. As for mode of interactions, perhaps this is where the laws is, the informal laws can come, because it governs how we conduct ourselves. So that becomes the institutions as per the economic discussion proper. Okay. So, and what moves us forward with these components is the goal. The goal, the reason for being. When we talk about economic system, then we are actually talking about how we want to produce, we want to distribute, we want to consume. The basic activities understood in the case of what constitute economics. Okay? So, the interesting part is the society, the role of society. How society embrace certain values, certain culture, certain worldview is the force to be reckoned with. Because that seems to be the defining character. What are the agreed upon norms? It's not a case of what you individually act or behave. But of course, at more group level or societal level, you can see the majority of behavior. But before that, you they understand society as being the makeup of a group of people, right? But here, when we talk about society, in this sense, we are looking at the predominant group of people, the ones that dictates the norm, the one that becomes dominant within the society. So they have a certain preference over what kind of institutions, rules that should be governing the behavior of our interaction. Okay? And in fact, the video that I'll be showing you in a few minutes' time is a case of how you can say they belong to the same race, they belong to a more or less little difference in terms of their fabric of the society initially, but over the years, due to the influence of politics and history, you see societies opting for different ways of trying to come up with the political system, the economic system, and the social system of those economies. Okay? Allow me to just do something. Quick question. Which country do you want to live in? Anyone prefers North? Well, they have a more handsome president. Okay? So, it's clear that economic decisions matters, and it has great effects on the well-being of the society. As you can see, at night it's dark. Part of the reason is the supply of electricity. They have shortage and problems of supply of electricity. That's why it's dark. Okay, of course. And by that it also shows that everyone is asleep, rather than in different parts of the world, right? In Malaysia, still went late because our eateries, it goes by the 24/7, 24-hour operating hours, right? So, even so, it just shows that anyone here in Gombak who ever feels that they are hungry at a certain hour, they can just go out and eat, right? That's part of someone's well-being at that point in time, which can be satisfied at that point in time. So it just shows the dynamics of a capitalist economy, or in this case, market-based economy, not necessarily capitalist economy. So, any other important points that you think interesting from that video? Any points that you feel like sharing or see that shows the difference between the two economies? This morning yesterday I look at your schedule, so it shows there is this interactive session, so I want to make the session interactive too. That's why I'm taking this approach. But I guess I'm constrained by the number of slides that I have, 42 just now, so I better be quick. So you have economic systems being defined there. All in all, it's trying to serve a certain economic goal that you learn in your economics, right? So again, a recap, a refresh of what you have discovered in your undergraduate years. What are the goals of macroeconomic goals?
Stabilize.
What kind of stability are you talking about? Political stability? If you are talking about political system, of course, then we'll be talking about political stability as one of the goals of a political system.
Economic growth.
Yes, growth. That's first and foremost. Employment. We want to have high unemployment, right?
Stabilization of fashion factors.
Yeah.
Okay? Agree? High unemployment.
No.
High unemployment.
So
Okay? I'm just checking whether you guys are awake or not. So high employment, and then you have what else? Healthy balance of payment. So all these goals will definitely promote your well-being. Yeah? If you have so huge a trade deficit, then definitely it has an impact on your exchange rate, and somehow you'll be having little chance to go overseas and go for a vacation, and that will not be something interesting. What more? Now you have exit tax in case of Malaysia, planning to introduce that. So anyway, economic system will serve those goals, definitely. Call it Islamic economic system. Ask yourself, you want to be employed or unemployed? Ask yourself whether you want to see high inflation or low inflation. So the question of price stability is still there in an Islamic economic system. So these goals are universal goals, universal economic goals, regardless of any type of system. Why? Because in the end, it serves our purpose. It helps us to travel. It helps us to plan our economic activities and so on. So there are some general, universal economic goals which are common across the systems, right? And of course, the question of priorities will differ upon case by case basis, right? Case by case basis. Like in the case of the US, at the wake of the crisis, were they more concerned about unemployment or growth? After the 2007 crisis, what was the main aim? Were they trying to go for price stability or what goal that were of concern to the policymakers? Growth, right? Growth rather than unemployment, rather than the potential of inflation. Okay? So that's depend on the context of the situation, the priorities. So approaches to categorize this is a textbook thing. One way is looking at the different consumption, production group, and exchange. And another is to look at whether that particular economy is agrarian or industrial based or service based. These are sectoral ones, and we can identify across different epoch, different phase in the particular economy. Also, we can see, like in the case of Malaysia, pre-1980 is very much agrarian, right? After the 80s, then we start to be industrial. But now, of late, services tend to lead the portion of economic pie or GDP of the Malaysian economy. Last time I checked, it's around 55%. But last time too, maybe 5-6 years ago. And assume now by the development of the economy in Malaysia, the cake of service-based economy is bigger than other backward economies. And that tends to be the feature of a developed economy, the service led. But that's not a concern here. I mean, in this lecture, in this session, our concern is more about the comparative traditional approach, which I'm now embarking on. Okay? Isms. The isms is of concern. What is then the ism? Isms are a set of ideas, which reinforce one another. Okay? It reinforces one another. What kind of ideas? The ideas about that. POG, philosophical foundation, operational principles, goals. It has a family of understanding when you look at the different systems on the issue of philosophical foundation. Capitalism will have a different philosophical foundation compared to the Islamic economic system. And the same can be said when we look at socialism. So, in this case, the ism sets the tone of discussion better than like. So the ism is more important for this particular reason. Number 1, number 2, number 3. This number 1, number 2, number 3 seems to be the, what do you call this, the intrinsic motivation for a particular expression of an economic system. It's more inherent, it's more, it's looking at the essence of the feature of any particular economic system. So that's why it's most important now for us to look at the different philosophical foundations. Okay? Different operational principles, differences in goals, if there is any. But as we have tried to explain just now, philosophical foundation might differ when we compare different systems. Operational principles might differ. Yeah, like capitalism, they go by self-interest, they allow for individualism, they allow for the pursuit of maximization of utility and so on. In fact, they promote that, right? But above all, we tend to agree on number 3. So, as you can see, in life we can agree on the goals. The goals will always be good ones. As long as we are good people, we will always call for a good objective. But crisis comes when we start to say that I have my way, you have your way, I want to do it this way, you want to do it that way. That becomes the conflict. That is where we can see the difference between the different systems. Okay? So here, the philosophical foundations to be structured. I think it's best that we look at these philosophical foundations on the questions of OMD. How does the society answer the question of OMD, origin, meaning, and destination of life? Okay, this is what Al-Prasaran and Chikjang talk about as world structures. World structures, the essence of origin, meaning, and destination of life. So, what is there when it comes to meaning of life? Yeah, life is where we have to either enjoy, that kind of thing. In a hedonistic cultures and society, what matters is enjoy. Enjoy and enjoy. So much so that even pain can be defined as pleasure, right? So that's how the mind works. Reason is a tool where the master is still the nafs. Okay? The master is still ourselves. We can just twist our understanding of things here and there to make it serve us. That's the weakness and the strength of reason. So, as for the purpose of life, one is supposed to get more wealth, and from there you can get more utility. From there you can actually claim to be happy. So all this seems to be the point of discussion when we look at the philosophical foundation on capitalism. Okay? Specifically, whenever we talk about scarcity, it's in reality there is a problem of how nature is never enough. For the simple fact that you have the other spectrum or demands on nature, and that is your needs and wants. So, as much as our wants are insatiable, then you have this case of insufficient amount of resources to satisfy our wants. So all this seems to be how reality is governed within the psyche of those who subscribe to the idea of capitalism. Okay. Now, what about socialism? Again, in short, we can say it's dialectical materialism. They want to be happy too. there, I'm looking at the term materialism. Materialism is the belief of how money, object is real, and these are the sources of happiness. So that's materialism. And you have dialectical, the interaction between different groups of people in search for such happiness. So, by difference between the two, I will not say capitalism and socialism are not that much different, because both are very much imbued with the goal of materialism. Okay? Except that in the case of capitalism, it celebrates individualism. In the case of socialism, it sees the pursuit as something that will inherently create conflict. You have to face the conflict of class. What kind of class? Is it class A, class B, or class C? Look at this. Can anyone pick out the groups or different classes? What are the two different groups of members of the society that defines the class conflict in Marxian economics? Two groups mentioned. The labor, okay, labor, proletariats, the working class, versus the capital owners or the firm owners. So, bourgeoisie was the term used. So, you have this class conflict. So, you have, how do you then survive in that environment? You have to actually go for the public ownership. That seems to be the solution. That's why actually, this is an arrow. Communism is, as an idea, is a utopian idea. It's an ideal idea. So that's why he said, even communist countries are struggling to show the actual working of communism, where everyone is happy to do whatever he thinks he can contribute, and at the same time he's happy to just take enough of the resources available for his usage. So that seems to be the requirement of a true working of communism. But in simple language, can you just imagine a case where everyone is just happy to work and happy to contribute the sweets in front, but just take enough of the sweets available when you are so sleepy. Right? So that seems to be the struggle of a communist economy. But then again, even facets or even shades of socialism is seen in democratic economies. Ortez, I think, right? One congresswoman, Ortez, in the US, is calling for a 70% income tax. 70% income tax. Now, this particular high income tax rate is very much a character or a feature of the economies like Sweden, Scandinavian countries, where they have a certain a greater show of what socialism is, okay? Where you have free education and so on and so forth, okay? But all these are very nice when you want to get people on board, free this, free that. But then again, when it comes to the real expression of whether we can have enough resources to go by that kind of high income tax rate, or that kind of high offerings, yeah? Free this, free that, free education, free health services, and so on. Then you have to back the question of how do you finance it? Okay, how do you finance it? So that's the struggle there. And by that, now we have to look the contrasting points of Islamic system. So you have the question of origin, meaning, and destination of life. Seems to be the structure of how we can philosophize a particular system. So, and in the case of our case of Islamic economic system, that's how we answer it, which is quite direct, right? Yes.
You said that Sweden, Scandinavian countries is socialism countries.
Mm-hmm.
Why not welfare state?
Well, why not welfare state? Well, for whether or not they are welfare state is a case of, as much as I know, countries like the UK is actually a welfare state, right? Where they have experienced the weakness of capitalism, and from there they try to remedy the weaknesses by looking at the question of welfare and provision of welfare by the state. Okay? In the case of Scandinavian countries, by design they have preference, at least in the 70s and 80s, they want to show themselves as a socialist state rather than a capitalist state. Okay? So that's what the basic difference between the two. So you have to look at the history of that particular economy. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
You mentioned to contrast economic system,
Okay.
capitalism and socialism are close to communism, and you make a example compared between South Korea and North Korea.
Okay.
South Korea related to capitalism country, and North Korea to communism country.
Okay.
And you show that capitalism is more successful than communism in North Korea.
Okay.
And now let's see what about the China, because China has a similarity condition with North Korea. In North Korea also North Korea has a communist party.
Okay.
China also has a communist party, but the condition between China and North Korea is very different, especially in economic performance. So what can be happen? Or like our neighbors country, like Vietnam maybe. Vietnam politically close to communism, but right now, as I know, economic growth in Vietnam is better than average of ASEAN country. So actually, communism, socialism, or capitalism is more political terminology or economic terminology. Thank you.
What's the last sentence?
Communism, socialism, capitalism is more political terminology or economic terminology.
Well, if you look at the idea of Marx, then communism is economics. And you cannot run away from politics. I mean, that's why we talk about it being a discussion in political economy. Now, the question of what's the difference between North Korea and also Vietnam. One thing clear is how open they are in terms of trade. The question of openness, trade openness. China is a member of WTO. Then, after that, signing of WTO member in 2001, they became the manufacturer of the world, right? Everywhere is produced in China, right? There's always evergreen joke. You look at made in China, made in China, right? So in terms of its structure, it's no longer economically, it's what we call state capitalism, right? The state and its localities tend to have a big say of whether investment should come in this Shanghai region or not, right? So now it's a case of, again, openness, whether they are willing to accept investments from foreign direct investments from overseas, right? So you can't have, or you don't have such feature when you look at North Korea. That's why it's dark at night, right? If there's factories, 24/7 factories, then definitely it's not dark even at night. Right? We have 24-hour kind of operation for factories. So that's the simple explanation. Their economic structure is actually different, right? One is closed, the other is open. Okay? And the way the state govern themselves, they think like a capitalist. So you have state capitalism. Okay? Unlike North Korea, they still go by closed economy. They go by production of their own things. Their car are just made in North Korea. Their weapons are all made in North Korea, and so on. So that's where the difference lies.
Professor?
Yes.
I have a little question here.
Okay.
Sometimes you mention communism and sometimes you mention socialisms. Actually, what the difference between two terminologies? This is the first. In some case, like capitalism and classical school of thought. So what the difference? Thank you.
Okay. If you look at the video again, you will see the difference between communism and also socialism. Manage to go later. So I did mention communism is actually the ideal form of society, where in the end there is a collective ownership of means of production. Okay? So much so that everyone is freely working for the state, okay? And freely taking back from the state just enough, while at the same time allowing others to take from that pool of services or public goods. Right? As for the difference between capitalism and also,
I mean, the difference between communisms and socialisms. What the difference between two terminologies? Is that both of same or difference? Or maybe just communism just for political terminologies, or how?
okay. Hey, the Indonesia, you're from Indonesia.
Yes, of course.
Do you have Parti Keadilan Sejahtera? Ada kan? KS.
Yes.
Ya. Adakah parti itu seadil-adilnya? Tiada konflik.
There is tension.
Kan? Ada konflik kan? Berebut jawatan mesti. Kan? So, when it comes to the ideal, it's communism. Okay? So, that's what it is. That's why they claim to be a communist party. Right? They claim to be communist party because they uphold the ideal of the ideal. And the most perfect form of the ideal of a society. And so that's where the difference is. In terms of socialism, you have the features as we will look at later. We have to talk about all these features and the characteristics. First, the philosophical foundation, and okay lah, in this case Islamic. The beauty with Muslims, when I show this, you understand it directly. Right? Anyone doesn't understand those words directly? Tawheed? No, right? I assume all of you understand this. Right? So for that reason, we can go through the next 30 slides more quickly. Right? Oh, okay. Tak apa. Kalau tidak, saya yang hidup. Okay, so you have the principles. Thank you very much for that. Okay? If everyone behaves like this, then you have communism. Okay? If everyone behaves like this.
What do you mean?
So that's the high ideal. Right? Once you know we are not like that, then we know the failure of how far the idea of communism is. And one more, if it's, all this studying and all, they kill people in the numbers of millions just because they want to pursue the idea of communism. Anyone, because what is it? You have to make sure that everyone agrees. One way of showing or making sure that people agree is through kill of dissent. When you show force against those who disagree, you will use fear factor to create obedience. That's what happened. That's why they kill. That's why all this focus on communism, focus on the ideal is something dangerous. Because in between what you want to aspire in and the real context is miles apart. You have a lot of impediments. You have to look at the real context of the problem, the challenges, and so on. So much so that I remember one critique of Islamic banking or finance. This critique comes from Siddiqui himself, Muhammad Najdullah Siddiqui. What does he say? Earlier on, when we talk about Islamic banking and finance, we only talk mudarabah, musyarakah, equity partnership. But we forget about how actually we can offer the right product. Basically, the requirements of trust is forgotten, or is marginalized, is sidelined. Just because we look at the ideal, forgetting that to reach the ideal, we have to go gradual, and that is something that the Malaysian experience can show you. Right? We already have now mudarabah savings account. Previously we don't have. When actually the real banking model of Islamic banking, we talk about two-tier mudarabah. You depositor, and then the bank extend mudarabah, the second tier. That's the idea. We have problems when it comes to implement. Implementation will take real concerns on the ground. That is something that can only be known when you are doing it. Right? You are practicing it, then you know, the real challenge is like this. Okay? So, all these good operational principles is no one should disagree. I mean, any reasonable person can never disagree with all these operational principles. Right? Who doesn't want to be treated nicely? Everyone wants. Who doesn't want to be helped? Everyone wants. Right? Who doesn't? Responsibility mungkin susah. Who wants to be accountable for everything? Then that is something you might say. But then again, this is what makes the whole economy functioning. When we uphold the responsibility, then we know that we have done our part, and by mutual reciprocity, then you can expect the other person will give in return proper economic behavior. By the way, in terms of theory of fairness, one theory talks about reciprocity, mutual reciprocity. If we subscribe to this, we can expect that the other person or the recipient of whatever good behavior that we show will also respond accordingly. Okay? Be nice to others. Even if it's not onto us, he or she will try to be nice to others. Okay, moderation in consumption, you know, in Surah Surah 63, Surah number 63. What surah is it? Okay. Tabarakalladzi ja'ala fis sama. Surah Furqan. Surah Furqan 25. Surah 25. Right? So I just want to show you this is the way to go and undertake the pursuit of goals. We have to move from whatever bad, riba, bring in good, halal, and within the halal you try and choose which one is better and try to promote the best. That's where Islamic economics work. You have the movement, you have a direction towards the aspiration of the goals. And this is the depiction of it. Yeah? And then characteristics. So quickly, I think here it refers to institutional framework. The question of institutional framework of an economic system. One point, what we have discovered in the case of China is this shift over the years from socialist economy, a closed economy, to an open economy. Right? So by then it has also shown the workings of capitalism. It has a shift. As I mentioned to you, once they signed be a member of the WTO, they somehow embrace capitalism, and thus you see on the streets you can come up with your fake iPhone easily. In China, you can Google up YouTube how to make iPhone from parts that you buy from Chinese. In China, you can from scratch. And why? Because in the end, money talks. As long as there's money to be made, profit to be made, then there's incentives for people to do things. Okay? So in the case of Islamic economics, we have permanency. This is a particular feature of the Islamic economics. You have the permanent features, permanent institutions, which by whom or by group we have to defend. Like marriage institution, family institution, zakat, faraid, and so on. Right? And you'll be surprised in the case of family institution. Milton Friedman is supposed to be a neoliberal. He actually said that he's against 100% inheritance tax. 100% inheritance tax. There is this question from a floor member, a clever student, he said, why not we have 100% inheritance tax? Because it doesn't affect anyone. After all, he has died, that person has died. 100% inheritance tax. But he said, if you were to do that, you will have conspicuous immediate consumption. There's no motive to actually, you kill off the incentive, he said. Because at least in this 80s that of the US or in the 80s, they still believe in family institution. They love family institution so much so that parents actually work so hard for the betterment of the young. If you say that in 100%, if you impose 100% inheritance tax, the incentive is lost. Right? The incentive for them to work hard is lost. And you will not see growth. I mean, at least you have negative effect on growth if you were to introduce such measures. So that's one benefit if you stick by this, in our case, we have to stick by the family institution. It will be forever and ever and ever. Then in the Islamic features. As for this one, industry. Why am I talking about industry now? It's something new. Right? You look at your history of Islam banking and finance, and you start to talk about big number in the social bank in Egypt and so on, in 60s. It's recent. The industry is recent. The principles were historical. But in terms of the industry of banks is something unique and responding to the need of the hour. Okay? So these are the institutional framework as to how we can actually identify different systems: property ownership, motivation, decision making, coordination mechanism, and role of government. Rosser and Rosser 2004, in all these five, they say the two most important institutional framework is actually property ownership and coordination mechanism. Okay, later we'll look at this. And I just cited Rosser and Rosser, Comparative Economic Systems. They have a book, freely downloadable. You can just Google it, right? And you'll find them saying these two, property ownership and coordination mechanism, is the two most important institutional framework that allows us to see whether it's capitalism or socialism and so on. Okay? So, this is a feature, and I don't think I have time to look into each one. But basically, it's quite straightforward. As I said, you guys are good students. That's why you have been success. Private ownership is more focused in the case of capitalism. With private ownership, you have private incentives. Yeah? You think about yourself, the betterment of yourself. Then, when it comes to decision making, you have to make sure that you have the total or full ownership, total freedom to decide what's best for yourself. Because after all, you know what's best for you. Right? So, the feature of decision making is decentralized. The unit, the demander, the supplier have the full authority to decide whether or not they want to enter the market. And the coordination mechanism is very much through the market exchange. Of course, there exists non-market exchange, but we're talking about capitalism, the focus is more on the market exchange. Role of government is supposed to be minimal. Right? After all, if you go by a bigger government, chances are you have conflict between your interests and also the interests of the state. Okay? So, the reverse, the whole idea of socialism is public ownership of factors of production, including labor. But by this, the idea is including labor, and then you have altruism and the pursuit of moral goodness of others. You try to pursue what's good for others. And somehow you see the evil of the individual. You ask the third party to decide for you because you assume the third party is actually thinking about the collective interest. So you allow the state so much power, so much so that in the case of China, they have that one-child policy, and after 2012, they have two-child policy. Right? By that, it means that if you have more than two child, you have problems with the authority, and you'll be fined. The parents will not be able to work in government agencies. So you have that is the extent of planning. We talk about planning in terms of what sectors. They go to the extent of the number of child that a family can have to that extent. Okay? And then you have, of course, because of that, you have a central focal or totalitarian state for you to see a working of socialism. So these details are there in the paper of Abdul Hamid Bashir. Have they shared with you? the paper, they asked me to give the paper, and I assume many of you will be reading it after this. Abdul Hamid Bashir. Okay. Though actually I assume that all of you have read it, but I changed my assumption. Okay, given context, I can feel that many of you have seen it. So all these details are quite direct, but the most important thing is this idea that property ownership is we celebrate, in fact, Islamic economics or Islamic fiqh celebrate private ownership. Private ownership. When we talk about ownership, it's all a case of rights and obligations. Rights and obligations. If you follow us, focus on this aspect so much more, the question of rights compared to the duties. Okay? Or obligations. Okay, 10 minutes. Okay. Just want to show you this. Okay. Let's talk about this. I made a point here, private ownership. Private ownership is very much celebrated. In fact, many companies were actually rich. Right? What does richness mean? Physical material richness means you have a lot of little asset, a lot of camels, a lot of orchards, right? You hear stories of companions, right? What does that mean? So that's why when you look at history, you have to see the implied situation. Right? What I have realized is when Islamic economists talk about this, they don't realize that even the concept of wealth is very much celebrated in the sense that it allows you to be more generous. And in fact, in the case of Islamic economic teaching, the more generous you are, the higher chance of you being wealthier. Right? Not just in the hereafter, but also on earth. Right? So this idea of richness is part and parcel of our belief. So you have Siti Khadijah and so on. All these are great examples, the companions. Okay? And what is the difference here? The difference is with this richness, they can do good much more than any poor person. Right? So that is the thinking there. It's not richness as an end. Richness is actually a means to do good. Okay? Okay, you have the zakat, for instance. If you understand zakat, then you know that somebody must be rich, only then you have somebody who pays zakat. Right? So that's why I said just now, somehow we actually celebrate those who actually are rich. They have greater opportunity to help others. And by this construct, the mutual reciprocity against the rich, the animosity against the rich will die out. Because you know, the poor will not revolt against the rich. Unlike the case of the internal contradiction that Marx was trying to say when it comes to capitalism. Right? There will fight among capitalists, suppression of the cost of living, standard of living of the proletariat, so that you can have more and more profits. But in the end, you create great sense of anger against the rich. So there is that destruction of the society by that construct. And capitalism will make way for socialism and communism. That was the theory. Okay? So you have this one is not important. Incentive. Quickly. Incentive, again, we can talk about all kinds of incentives. In fact, incentives can be in the form of a hug. Right? If you have a family, then you know you can play around with the incentive of hugs. You know hugs? Hugs. Yeah? Hugs and kisses. Hugs and kisses. No, hugs. Hugs and kisses. If you do good, I'll hug you, I'll kiss you. You don't have to say it as a, but you can use it as a reinforcing mechanism to incentivize good behavior in your kids. Right? If they fast, if they solat, right after solat, you hug them. That is a reinforcement for them to do solat. Not just solat lah. In this case, when you want to talk about economics, yes. If one, you get married and you have 6 and 7 kids, then you know how to do the fix. You can use moral incentives, you can use emotional incentives. All that can work. And all that is allowed. Just like your parents when they say, you fast one day, you get 1 ringgit. Itu apa tu? Kalau tidak, you are looking for material incentives. Niat secondary lah. This is what you call conditioning behavior. In psychology, they talk about conditioning behavior. And you want to condition good behavior, you have to incentivize. Then it comes naturally, and one point, buat apa lah nak RM1, tak ada RM100 pula kali ni. Doesn't work after you go past a certain age, you cannot demand for any more money anymore. Right? Goes without saying that it becomes natural. Conditioning behavior. You condition the behavior. And yes, all these are straightforward because now it seems that I have how many minutes. Okay, lebih kurang. Organization of decision making, decentralized and centralized. Well, what is the difference between the two? The difference is which one has more freedom? Decentralized. Right? Decentralized. Which one do you prefer?
Centralized.
So if you look back and you do the reverse of whatever you like, you will see somehow you will start to think that, do I have the psyche of a capitalist? Somebody who subscribe to capitalism? Chances are. Why? Because it's closer to human nature. But then again, not every time you can use material incentives. Okay, talks about shura and so on. These are classical institutions which are so difficult to translate in the modern times. But the basis of shura is actually getting the input and decide among the group which are qualified. It's not that you just pick any Tom, Dick or Harry's opinion. So the question of qualification matters. Right? So in the case of tribal societies, their representative will sit in the shura. Okay, so this one again is a case of how do you want to bring in the real world context. Okay, you have actually a good plan. A good government will do this. They will try to have the Vision 2020. Don't set it in 90s. Hopefully, yes, they will alive next year so that you can see the fruits of 2020. Shared prosperity there. Okay, but the point is, if you look at this, then you see that once the state set a vision, they have to actually break it down into different, break it down into smaller periods, so that you have a closer monitoring. Once once you go by closer monitoring, you can actually see the progress better. Whether we are moving towards the Vision 2020 or not. Okay. So in this case, this is one simple example of how the Prophet actually relied on the market. Okay. But then again, in fiqh, you have discussion of price control as well. But that is actually not a general position. The general position is this position. Let the market decide. That's the general position. We don't have time to go into details there, but basically, whenever we talk about market system, it's not laissez-faire. It's very much a case of fulfilling the requirements, fulfilling the conditions. Yeah? Then only we can have a just price. You have the institution of ISBA. This is also mentioned in Abdul Hamid's book. Yeah? And then rule of state, you have, of course, just now you would have realized that totalitarian state is the feature of socialism. Okay? In our case, we have public interest to be the reason for intervention. But interestingly, actually, Abdul Hamid Bashir talk about how the state, Islamic state, must control itself from intervening operations of the market. Okay? By design, you have to be minimal. The interest is, the pursuit of public interest is what matters most, but by that, it means also that the cases for intervention is also minimal. Cases for intervention is also minimal. Justice for all. Okay, you have the role of the state, conducive. Basically, infra, whether it's in the form of human capital or in the case of all these are necessary conducive environment, right? Political stability and economic, moral, religious, legal, all these are the role of the state. You cannot expect a private group to take charge of the legal matters, because definitely there will be a conflict of interest. This is a summary as captured by this Shah, and then on what is there in the literature when it comes to the role of the state. Adil al-Ihsan, this is the middle path, Islamic economic system. It's always mixed, but this mix have a slant towards the private. Have a slant towards the private. And then the coupling of self-interest and altruism. What we have in our Islamic economic system is an embedded economy, where in our pursuit of interest, we actually have captured in the interest of others. Okay? So, meaning it's, some use the word enlightened self-interest. And then you have shura and so on. So, the role of government is active in the mode of facilitating. Okay, before I conclude, I just want to show you an attempt by Arif to actually combine the question of system with the science. So you have this particular structure of science, and to make it a comparative sense, these are the features for socialism. Okay, when it comes to the philosophical foundation, is dialectical materialism, we have discussed. And then you have these micro foundations, the interaction, how do you interact? So you look at the case of the agents, important agents. Interestingly enough, once you give the state, you give the state to be the representative of the collective interest. Once you do that, the state will actually decide based on their self-interest. So basically you have the working of self-interest, but the form is the form of the state. It's like China. And then, well, you don't need to have China to show the example. Even North Korea, the state is actually thinking about its own self-interest. Okay, so in the case of Islam, then you have Islamic economic system, this. But for you to appreciate it, then you look at the other extreme. The other extreme is the capitalist structure. You have the working of Homo economicus, talk about self-interest, who wants to maximize his utility, and that rationality seems to be the cardinal virtue in capitalist economies. Okay, this is something edited from them. But above all, once you look at the features, the goals, the real question is, how do you develop an Islamic economic system? Develop means you have to have a on-the-ground experience to know how to build a, any of you is a fan of MasterChef? MasterChef. Gordon Ramsay. Right? My kids love MasterChef. Okay, fine. Good. But then, I ask them to cook. They don't have the skill. Because they don't have the experience. This is where the problem lies with any idea talking about an Islamic economic system, Islamic model economy. You can have all the goals, all the features which are most beautiful. And everyone will agree upon. But you ask yourself, how do you start to have a working Islamic economic system? Then that's where the real trouble lies. And the real answer will be, I would